In the meantime, tonight, there are troubling new questions about what happened in the hours after the Deepwater Horizon rig exploded. 150 men survived the blast on April 20th. Another 11 are presumed dead. Now, some of the survivors claim the company essentially coerced them into signing legal waivers after they were rescued. Tonight, we're joined by Kurt Arnold, who is representing crew members, joined by Kelly Saindon, a who has dealt with maritime before. I also want to point out Transocean, the company that owns the rig, they did give these waivers out but had no further comment. First of all, I want to show our viewers the document that we're talking about, particularly these two lines crew members initialed. Quote, "I was not a witness to the incident requiring the evacuation and no first-hand or personal knowledge regarding the incident, and I was not injured as a result of the." Kurt, you're representing some of these survivors who signed this. When in the course of this whole rescue operations did your clients get this form?
Sure, it's important. Good evening. But it's important to remember that right after the explosion, once these men were put on a vessel that could take them to shore, they refused to take them to shore for over 12 hours. They literally kept them there while the rig was burning. And so then they took them into shore, and they didn't get in for nearly 40 hours later, and they took them to a hotel. And at that point, before they're allowed to go home, before they're allowed to go see their own doctors, claimsmen for the company are trying to get them to initial and say that they're not hurt before they've even been allowed to see their own physician. And then since that time, claimsmen within days of these guys getting home are calling them, trying to set up meetings with for releases, and if they won't sign a release, they want to offer them just a little bit of money in an effort to try to get them to
Well, so they didn't have to sign this release is what you're telling me, since they're still trying to get others to sign it. They could have walked away, is that so?
Well, in fact, a few of my clients did walk away, but the reality is that that's not the way you're supposed to act after maybe the biggest disaster in the Gulf, where
let me just ask Kelly and bring him in on that. Is that the way you're supposed to act? I mean, is this, to a certain sense, is this sort of standard operating procedure? I know that you were on the other side in a somewhat similar circumstance, a barge explosion a few years ago. So is this SOP?
It absolutely is. You have to lock down who the relevant witnesses are, and you need to minimize and contain who's injured, what do they know, who are the key players, and let the other people move on with their claims. They didn't have to sign this, but you have to acknowledge at the time, were you injured, yes or no? If they sign no, you don't have to worry about getting a medical treatment. If they were in fact injured, they don't sign the form and they get treatment. Were you a witness, yes or no? That is very critical information when they're piecing together what happened, who was hurt, what did they see, how were they injured, if at all.
But Kelly, what about the fact that some of these men, you know, they hadn't had sleep, some of them, for 40 hours. They just watched this huge explosion. They hadn't seen their families. Some of their fellow rig people died. And yet they're sort of saying, okay, sign this, do this. Doesn't that look like coercion?
No, it looks like, to me, good investigation skills. They didn't have to sign it, and they can explain it away. As any attorney will tell you, there's always potentially problems with a waiver. And as the gentleman and my counterpart, this other attorney is going to tell you, some of his clients did sign a waiver, and they're going to seek to go around that and seek damages to be compensated for being injured if they were in fact were. So it's good procedure for the company to try to minimize liability. And yes, it's a huge disaster. Does it look bad from a PR perspective? Possibly. But were they doing the right thing? Yes.
Kurt, did you have any of your clients see something and then swear that they didn't see? Did some of them sort of falsely fill in anything?
Well, sure. I mean, I had clients that were knocked unconscious, that had to go to the ER immediately after they got back for smoke inhalation, then lung problems, and who actually saw the accident, saw their friends die, but because the company man is sitting there saying, here, you need to initial this before you go get your counseling, they signed it. Particularly the younger guys who are scared and probably has had as many years and been around. I mean, that's pretty intimidating, particularly when you haven't had sleep in nearly 60 hours. And then one other point. The big problem here is I keep hearing on TV, oh, we're taking responsibility, but then privately, they're going around trying to, before guys could even see their doctors or kind of get a hold of what's going on in their life after they lost many of their friends, get them to sign releases, and it's just not right.
Kurt Arnold, and I'm so sorry, Kelly Saindon. I promise next time I'll start with you, but we have run out of time, but I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Candy.
Kelly Saindon, Kurt Arnold, thank you.
Thank you.